HBS show with lesson the screen goddess. History behind success of your role model. Yeah, Oluwa lifted me higher. Oh, now they wanna eat with me. Now they wanna drink with me. Now they see me as something. But I can't forget yesterday when they saw me as nothing. No one knows tomorrow, brother. No one knows tomorrow, sister. No one knows tomorrow, mama. No one knows tomorrow, Baba. Yeah. It's the HBS show with lesson the screen goddess. History behind success of your role model.
Good to have you again on the program HBS show, History Behind Success. My guest on this program is a man that loves education so much. He is the goal getter. He has imparted in the life of so many people. He's a man that believes in himself, a man that believes that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. The thing is that you must be good. Who is this man? Join me as I make welcome to the program the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Works. He is Engineer Frederick Edafioghor.
It's the HBS show with lesson the screen goddess. History behind success of your role model.
Wow, P.S., you're looking so smart. So tell me, what's the secret behind this handsomeness?
Well, I have to do things that will make me look younger.
Oh, what are those things?
Of course, I exercise to the best of my ability, maybe walking. I don't do more than walking, really. And of course, I also dress to look younger. Yes.
And it's really good. It's
Thank
good.
you.
Just keep it up. Good looking is a serious business.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you.
All right. Everybody has a story of how he or she started from the humble beginning. So tell us, how was your growing up like? The family you were born into, the schools you attended.
Well, Blessing, thank you very much for having me on this program.
You're welcome.
Okay, I was born in Ozoro in Isoko North local government area. My parents, both of them, were teachers, primary school teachers. So I was born in Uzoro. And when I was born in Uzoro, my parents at the time were staying in the compound of Amawe, who was a past king of Uzoro. And the son of Amawe, when I was born, said, "Oh, it's our father that has come back to life." And that is why my middle name today is Amawe.
Okay.
So I am Frederick Amawe Edafioghor.
Okay.
And growing up was fun, but as a child of teachers, that fun was restricted. So I must tell you that I couldn't do some of the things my friends would do, like when you finish school, you hang back in school and be playing games and all that, because they march us home. You go home. But be that as it may, we had our own little ways of playing around. My memory of childhood starts from when my parents were teaching in Olomoro. So that would be sometime around the 1968 or 69 during the Civil War. 68, 69, 67. And I remember, of course, my mother, when the soldiers were advancing on that community, we take us into the cassava farm. And my youngest brother, or not my youngest brother at that time, who is now a general, will be crying, and my mother would just be stuffing his mouth with eggs just to keep him quiet, because we were afraid that if the soldiers find out that we're hiding, anything can happen to us, So that is one memory I remember. Of course, one day too, I can't remember what happened. We went into the school compound. I can't remember what we were doing there. But suddenly it started raining, and we encountered something that looked like a crocodile or alligator in the back of the school compound. And of course, you can imagine the race to take off and leave that creature. Yeah. So these are some of the small things I remember as a child growing up. So after Olomoro, the next call for us was in the north. During the Civil War, the Northwestern State Government and the Midwestern State Government had an exchange of teachers. And my parents, two of them, were on secondment to the Northwestern State. So my first 3 years of primary school were in a village called Shuni, which is near Sokoto. I had 3 years of primary school there, primaries 1 to 3, which was from, I think, 1969 at the time to 71 when we came back. There, of course, we were in a community that was a little different from where we came from. But I remember being like an interpreter, because most of the children then in my class, English was a problem to them. So I would normally, when the teachers teach at times, I will now start explaining to them in Hausa language. But you won't believe, I can't speak Hausa again. But at that time, I was so fluent. But by the time we came back in 1971, the language gradually left the three of us that were big children then who could only speak.
Because nobody to speak with.
Yes. So that was it. So we came back in 1971, spent 1 year in 2 years in the primary school in my village. For my father was transferred to Edafioghor as the headmaster. So at Edafioghor, from where I entered James Welch Grammar School in Edafioghor in 1974. I left James Welch in 1979 with my school certificate. Had 1 year in Asaba at St. Patrick's. I must tell you that at that time, St. Patrick's was the actual west end of Asaba. They used to call this part of Asaba the west end.
Okay.
And Asaba was, St. Patrick's was like the last building you see on this side of Asaba. That was 79 to 80. Before then, in lower 6, I gained admission into University of Benin to study civil engineering. After my civil engineering training in Uniben, I had my National Youth Service in Kaduna from there I started working. I was never unemployed for one day, I must tell you. Not like what the young people of these days go through. Because in fact, the company where I
did your NYSC.
NYSC primary assignment actually absorbed me. And I worked with them for about 4 years. It was a consulting firm, a boutique consulting firm, and I'm grateful for the time I spent there because they actually honed my engineering skills. And most of the things I know today and practice as engineering I got from that firm in a period of about 4 years. In that firm, I was a small engineer who was working with about 20 senior engineers.
Wow.
So I was like the errand boy. Fred, do this for me. Fred, do that for me. And I was always happy to do it.
Yes.
And I think it has served me very well now that at least I got fantastic experience there. After the name of the company was Ward, Ashcroft and Pacman.
Okay, let me take you back. During your secondary school days before your higher institution, did you have any challenges to go to school and all of that?
No.
Due to fund?
No, certainly, like I told you, I'm a child of 2 teachers. So teachers will normally do everything to put their children through school. So my parents, of course, knew the value of education. Having trained other people's children, as it were, they were committed to also training their own children. So I attended school. Their salaries were quite meager, and that is why, even though my first passion would have been to be a teacher, when I saw what my parents went through, of course, I knew that if I were to be a teacher today, I would not be able to look after my family the way I would want to.
Yeah.
So, but teaching is actually my first passion. I say this because I remember when I used to come from school, in the early days, secondary school, I won't really notice that there was any real problem sending me to school. But when I was in the university, about the time I gained admission in fact, when I gained admission to the university, my dad was not around. He was in the UK. He went for a special program they had for headmasters in those days, who spent 2 years in the UK and earned a degree in education. So my dad was away when I gained admission. And that was when the first challenge of money really came, because it was like,
only your mom.
Your father is not around, so you may have to wait for your father to come back before you go to the university. Then I told my mom, opportunity comes but once. In fact, she's always quoting that, for me, that's what I told her at the time. So she had to rally around. I remember my late uncle, Stephen, got there, my mother's elder brother, that one, and my uncle, Warren, Solomon Warren, brought some money together with the small that my mother could also to put together for me to go to Uniben and start my university education. So after that, of course, anytime you come, and of course we were 9 children from my mom.
Wow!
Yes, we were 9 children and I'm the first. So there was always a struggle about how to get everybody educated.
Yes.
I also remember when I used to come home, of course, when I come from school, my mother is worried because that means I'm coming to take money. Yes, I can see her panicking at times or, fretting because she has to look for money for me to go back to school. So money was always a problem because, of course, we're not born with, how do they call it?
Silver spoon.
A silver spoon. I wasn't born with a silver spoon.
Did you in any way do any business in school to make sure you have some cash with you?
No. I didn't do any business while in school. And I must tell you that the engineering program in Uniben is not a joke.
Because there's
no space for such. And from your first year in engineering in Uniben, you don't even have long vacations, as it were. Because during your long vacation in your first year, you do what we call workshop practice. Then subsequent years, you must do industrial training. So every long vacation, you go for industrial training.
Okay.
In your second year, you do 3 months. In your third year, you do 3 months. In your fourth year, you do 6 months, because the second semester of, I think, your fourth year is added to the long vacation to make 6 months for you to get 12 years of hands-on training that, in fact, is so crucial to making you a good engineer. Yes. And I had the benefit of some very good training during those 12 months of industrial training. I did the first one in a Delta Steel Company. I did the second one with Polusa. In Polusa, I learned a lot of surveying in Abuja in 1983, when the whole of that federal capital today that you see was all bushes. That time when we go to survey the route for the interceptor seals, we see wild animals like boas and of course snakes in the bush. So when we're going out, we're properly armed to be able to defend ourselves. Then my last industrial training, I did it with a firm called Status Associates in Benin City, where my engineering mentor, Engineer Edafioghor, took me and my friend, Engineer Frederick, through some very rigorous training in engineering design, conceptual and design of projects, for which I'm still very grateful to him till today. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us, how did you become an engineer? You said your parents are teachers, so I was expecting that you follow their field.
Yes, I agree with you. And I love teaching, really. And till today, teaching is still one of my passions. I keep expecting that one day I'll teach. Maybe when I retire, I'll go and lecture or do something, because I think I have the capacity to impact knowledge, and it's something that I enjoy. Now, I did not want to become a teacher because I see what teachers go through in the society. Because the teachers are so many, the promotions are delayed, the salaries are lean, and so on and so forth. So teaching was not an option for me at all, because I had grown up in the home of two teachers, where, there is a joke that teachers actually measure the yam with a tape. I won't confirm to you whether my mother was measuring the yam with a tape for us to cook. But so
that joke is real.
I'm not confirming or denying that. But now, when I was in secondary school, and based on, of course, advice from parents and other people, I wanted to be a medical doctor. So all my education was geared towards becoming a medical doctor. But I realized that I'm quite passionate. I'm a passionate person. So at a point, I realized that I'm able to go with medical practice, because when I do something, I put myself all inside it.
Yeah.
And medical practice, where you deal with people who are vulnerable, sick, and in need of help, I felt that it will actually kill me emotionally. So I won't be able to take it for too long. So that was how, sometime around when I was in my class 4, then of course, secondary school was only 5 years, about class 4, I started rethinking my choice of profession. But let me tell you a secret. When I was in the secondary school, mathematics was one of my worst subjects. Worst. I used to score 15%, 20%, 19% in mathematics. And this is what the youth of today should actually listen for. So I was struggling with maths. Then I had a senior called Daniel Amorve from Uweru. So he saw me. He was one of the brightest in his class in those days. He was 2 years ahead of me. So when I was in Form 1, he was in 3. When he was in 5, I was in 3. So when he was leaving in 1977, when I was leaving school, he looked at me one day and said, "Fred, my boy, what do I do for you? You are an art student who wants to study science. So buy a notebook for me." So I bought, the foolish boy that I was, I bought him a 40-leaf notebook. And Daniel took that notebook and solved mathematics for me, the secondary school mathematics, from back cover to back cover of that notebook, instructing me as if he was with you. When I read that book, it's like he's talking to me. So that was how Daniel turned my life around. And with that, I was able to make, I think, a 5 in my school certificate, mathematics. Then I got emboldened. I said, if I can make 5 in mathematics in O level, that means let me go and become an engineer.
Just like that?
Just like that, yes. I like challenges. The other things were looking too simple for me now. So, and that is how I changed my career from medicine to civil engineering. So, because the first JAMB I wrote in 1979, where I chose UI, medicine was my first choice. But the next one, which got me to InterviewingEngr, I chose the civil engineering as my first course of study. So, for me, and as a young man, I actually used to think I could do everything. I had a can-do spirit, which means that I used to like taking on challenges.
Yes.
And this, my choice of career, is a typical me of that time. That is, I will say, no, whatever it is, I can do it.
Yes.
And I will set my mind to doing it. Of course, when I got to the University of Benin, it was not easy. My first year, I failed woefully. I failed woefully. But again, the can-do spirit comes in. I was quite young. And as a young boy, you don't take some things seriously.
Granted,
yeah, you take them for granted. But when I saw failure staring me in the face, I also had to sit up because I didn't know how I was going to explain to my parents that I dropped out of school. So I had to sit up and face my studies squarely. After the first exams in InterviewingEngr that year, they allowed us to write a receipt. So we did the receipt because I passed. And by the time I got to 200 level, I was beginning to adjust to the university system. And of course, I think I was also getting older too and wiser too. And before you knew it, university became fun. Yeah.
All right, in case you're just joining us, it is HBS show, History Behind Success. And my guest on the program is the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Works, talking about Engineer Frederick Edafioghor. Stay tuned. Be right back.
It's the HBS show with lesson the screen goddess. History behind success of your role model. HBS show with lesson the screen goddess. History behind success of your role model.
Glad to know that you're still there. In case you're just joining us, it is HBS show, and our guest on this program is the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Works, Engineer Frederick Edafioghor. So before that break, you've been telling us about how you work with different private firms. So I believe you have the passion to work with private firms. So how come you're not a civil servant? How did it start it?
Well, my career has been, let me say, it's a straightforward one because, like I told you, after my youth service, I spent 3 more years with Ward Ashcroft Apartment, a firm in Kaduna.
Yes.
And while working with them, I realized that while I love the work so much, the pay you get from a consulting firm is usually very poor. In fact, I remember vividly there was a day I left the office, and immediately I came out of the office in Kaduna, the rain started falling. And I was beaten by the rain to the point where I walked all the way home.
Wow.
So when I got home, I was thinking about my life. What is this? That was after about 4 years of
Very,
graduation.
very bad.
Yes, so I felt very bad. So the next morning, I went to my boss, who was a British man. I said, Mr. Davis, I want to buy a car. Then Mr. Davis told me, Fred, I'm not a bank. If you want to buy a car, go to your bank. I felt very bad. That was the day I started looking for a new job. Yes, and you won't believe it. Within 3 months of that conversation with Mr. Davis, I got a new job. And I got a new job with Edafioghor Nigeria Limited. And the job came with a brand new car.
Wow.
Which was to be changed every year or every other year.
Okay.
So that was how I left the consulting firm for Edafioghor Nigeria in 1989. And I was transferred to Kano. So that job, of course, was a job that required a lot of travel. So I dragged myself around. Initially, I was covering half of the north because we had 2 offices in Kano and Kaduna. But later, they collapsed the whole of the north together, so I was actually covering the whole of the north. And the job involved the construction and maintenance of the company's facilities for the sale of petroleum products. At that time, mainly they were petrol stations. Of course, we had our offices. Later, we had a small depot in Kano. I think we did some manufacturing, lubricant blending in that plant for a while. And we're storing products there. Yes, so that was the job I did for 12 years.
Wow.
Yes. And on that job, of course, I was transferred from Kaduna, from Kano to Kaduna, from Kaduna to Lagos, Lagos back to Kano, and Kano from Kano, I think I went to Warri, where I became the regional manager for the Midwest region. It was from that appointment that I joined the civil service in 2001. The story of my joining the civil service is also a very funny one because I joined the civil service at a time when ELF, my company then, was merging with Total.
Okay.
And when the merger came, of course, there were a lot of intrigues and all that. People struggling for positions and all that. And we were 6 regional managers in ELF and 6 regional managers in Total. The company wanted to retain only 6 of the regional managers. And of course, I was told by my boss then that I won't be one of the 6 regional managers that will be retained, which was not bad in itself, but he now told me, but he will make me the district manager. District manager is the next position to regional manager. of the biggest district in Nigeria, which is Lagos. But one day, I was in the Total office in Benin, and my boss called me to tell me that he was going to post me to Shagamu instead of Lagos. So I told him that's not acceptable to me. And you won't believe it. And that's why I believe a lot in God. After that conversation, that day, I picked up a copy of The Guardian. And behold, there was an advert where the Delta State government was looking for engineers, and they were looking for senior engineers. So that was how I applied and joined the civil service as a chief civil engineer in 2001 on grade level 14.
Wow.
Yes, so I have been working in the civil service since 2001, which is about 21 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Can you tell us how you met your wife?
Oh, my wife.
Yes.
I met my wife.
You married a very beautiful woman. So tell us the journey. How did you meet her?
Oh, thank you very much. I must tell you that getting married is the most difficult thing that I've done in my life. People think getting married is easy, but this is one man who found it very difficult to get married.
Why?
I couldn't. I think I kept making some wrong choices, as it were.
Okay.
Yes, so to the extent that I didn't get married until I was 36 years old, which was way too much for me. In fact, by the time I was getting married, I was actually tired of being a bachelor. Yes, I was fed up. But my friends didn't realize how tired I was of being a bachelor. They thought I liked playing around and all that. But inside me, I was quite frustrated. So I met my wife when I went for the burial of my uncle. And then my wife happened to be a schoolmate of my uncle's daughter. I came from Kano at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, for the funeral, because that uncle was a very dear uncle to me. My father's not just cousin, but they were very good friends. So when he died, I was quite touched. And like I always joke and tell my wife, my uncle blessed me at his funeral by giving you to me, knowing that I had suffered for too long. Yes.
Divine arrangement.
Yeah, divine arrangement. And it worked beautifully well. So we met at the party, of course. Hello, baby, how are you? And that's how we got married in 2000, in the year 2000, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, your position as a permanent secretary, also you're still an engineer.
Yes.
It's a very busy one.
Yeah.
So how do you have time for your social life?
Oh, well, first of all, they say all work no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah.
And all play no work. So now, there is time for everything. When you are supposed to work, you must make sure you use those hours assigned for work to work, so that you can have time for other things. Of course, I take work home and do a lot of things, but I also know that I have a responsibility to my family. So no matter how much the pressure is, I have to create time for my wife and children. And also don't forget that at times the pressure is actually so much that it is the family that is the release valve that you have. If you keep on at it at a certain pace, you can even collapse from exhaustion. And we're not talking about just, in fact, for me, the exhaustion is not physical, it's mental. It is where, at times when I stay at my desk and crunching figures and doing things, you discover that I get hungry faster because it is tasking for me. So I create time, and weekends, of course, are good times to spend with your family. So I am married with 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls.
Wow.
Who are,
perfect combination.
yeah, who are between the ages of 16, 16 and 21. So they are a little big now. Yes, and we have a wonderful family time together because we talk to each other and we enjoy each other's company. Yeah.
All right, just before we go, so our youth of today, many of them, they just want to make it big.
Yeah.
And also, others are blaming the government for not giving them employment and all of that. But I believe there's opportunity everywhere if one can see clearly. What is your advice to today's youth?
Well, my advice to today's youth is that nothing good comes easy. Nothing good comes easy. There are a lot of opportunities in Nigeria. I will agree with you to the extent that the educational system in Nigeria seems to train you for employment, which is not there. You understand? But I think things are changing a little now with a focus on entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So people are now beginning to think of what they can do for themselves. And in that, what you can do for yourself, there's a lot. Once you change your mindset from the mindset of employment, the mindset of what you can do for yourself, there's a lot you will discover. But there is something. The young people of today think that hard work is a sin, or the people who work hard are foolish. And that is where the concept of not, they say instead of working hard, you should work smart. You see, it's a misnomer. Because it can't be so smart that it's no longer hard. Smart means that you should engage your brain probably more than your hands. You understand? I'll give you a typical example. I, as a human being, if I misplace something, I don't go around searching the whole house for it. My attitude when I'm trying to recover something is, I sit down and try to walk back my brain. So I look for things with my brain. I don't look for them with my hands to a very large extent. You understand? So that is the smartness that we're talking about. So I engage my brain to say, when did I last see this thing? How? Then at times before you know it, I just go straight to where it is and pick it out. Yeah. But some people, they don't have that patience. So they start moving the chairs and moving the table. So I'm using that to illustrate what working smart means. The youth of today must work smart. But it does not preclude hard work. Now, the environment has changed completely. Power supply is a very big challenge in Nigeria today. If we had power, I can assure you that Nigeria will explode from the energy of the youths.
That's true.
Yes. So if we're talking about government and going forward today, the first thing that any government should do for us is power supply. All the small welders, because I've also been engaged in some things that are unsustainable because of power supply. And when you go around Nigeria, you see hoteliers, people who have small industries, the artisans, they are unable to break even. And today, as we speak, the cost of diesel is so prohibitive that even the big companies cannot even afford it. So you discover that productivity will just drop because of power supply. And when you assemble all the money we used to buy generators in this country over the past just 10 years, I think that money is sufficient to give everybody power that will not be too expensive compared to how much we pay for power today. So back to the youths.
Yes.
The youths, they must go to school. Because the world today is a world that is based on knowledge.
Yes.
I've heard gimmicks like school is a scam. School can never be a scam. Because whatever you want to do, education makes you to do it better. You understand? Unless you want to be a thief or you understand?
Yes.
Education improves your chances of doing anything at all. And for me, this country can become an exporter of manpower to the rest of the world, just like India is. When I was in secondary school, India and Philippines, we had teachers from India and Philippines who came to Nigeria at that time because of the situation of their economies. And of course, they helped to augment the Nigerian educational system. So I expect the young people of today to go to school. I'm told that from research, they have found out that amongst the immigrant groups in the US, for instance, Nigerians are the best trained people.
Yes.
And most of those Nigerians that do well there, I must tell you, are Nigerians that went to school here and went there for maybe a master's degree, acquired a PhD, and so on and so forth. Some people will ask me, how will we do it? Be good. Excel in what you do. When you go to school, don't just go to school. Go and make a first class. Make good grades. And be focused on the opportunities you have. And I'm sure the doors will open for you. I have a quote from Brian Tracy that says, "The world will move aside for the man who knows where he is going." So I will tell the youth of today, march on, because the world will clear the way for you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time on this program. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We've come to the end of the program. Remember what he said. Be good. Excel in what you do. That has been our guest, the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Works, Engineer Frederick Edafioghor. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, HBS Show with Blessing. I am Blessing of Omeo. We'll do it again. Don't miss it.
It's the HBS show with Blessing, the Spring Goddess. History behind success of your role model.